Hello everyone. So today what we're going to talk about is explaining in detail needle cartridges and or needle bars. Everything, all the information I give you today is going to be able to be used for either or. So I'm going to go in detail about the cartridges, which ones you should get, which ones I use to try to help you out in the future. And if you are interested in content like this, the best thing you can do is like and follow down below so you can keep up to date on all the new videos that I make. This is what we're going to be talking about today, is cartridges and needle bars. So yeah, what we're going to talk about first is the numbers on the back of a cartridge. If you get them in the mail and look at your box, what the numbers mean and how could further help you with the knowledge of knowing what they are. So like this. This is what you're going to see when you get them in the mail. There's going to be a couple numbers right here. The first number is going to be the gauge of your needle. There's either going to be a 12, a 10, or an 08 there. 12s are standard. That's the gauge that you're going to get with a regular needle. Then there are 10s, which are classified as double zeros. And then there's going to be an 08, which will be your bug pin needles. One thing to think about, most tattoo artists will actually classify a 10 as a bug pin, just because that's what a lot of people have called it, and that's kind of what it's classified now, but it's not actually a bug pin gauged needle. Most of the ones I stick with either 12 or a 10. I really don't have a need to go into the 08, so when I say a bug pin, I'm talking about the 10s. Awesome, so that is your first number on your actual cartridge. Then you go to the next number, which would be a 09, an 11, a 14, whatever that is your number for how many needles there are in the actual cartridge. From that, you could go on to, plenty of different ones if you're using a mag, anything like that. There could be a ton of different numbers on there, but that is what the second number means on the actual cartridge. And then after that, you'll either see a RL, which stands for round liner, or a CM, which stands for a curve mag. All of these numbers stand for different things that go into your cartridge. Also, if you're using round shader, it'll be RS. So all these things are super important to know, and that's what they mean. From there, I wanted to talk on the gauge really quickly. So the gauge of the actual needle is how thick the needle is before it goes down to a taper. So it'll be the thickness of the actual needle, not anything to do with how the taper is on the actual needle. When we're talking about that, taper is the word you're looking for. So a lot of different artists have kind of different feelings about this. What works best for me is a short taper works best for me for lining. A longer taper kind of works better when I'm shading and doing things like that. But that's just personal preference. So if you're trying to get into, getting what tapers you want, all that stuff, I'd recommend trying some different stuff out and seeing which works best for you. Okay, first we'll get into a round liner. So I'll show you a picture right here of what that looks like. So these you're going to be obviously using for lining. All of these things, it's going to make a crisp line. Some people will use round shaders for line work, but that's not going to make a crisp line. It's kind of going to leave a fuzzy part of the outside of that line to where it doesn't look as crisp as you would use with a liner. With this, your needles are set up in a circular positioning so that when you tattoo, it'll create a perfect line. Okay, next we're going to be talking about a regular mag. I'll show you that right here as well. So these are really great. They're easy to angle. You could get up to your lines really easily just because it has that flat area that you could go up to and get into areas really easily. The biggest problem with them would be if you are starting out, it is really easy to overwork the skin on those areas if you aren't holding them perfectly. So that's one thing to think about. The next would be a curve mag. These are used a lot more, I feel like, nowadays. It's what I use mostly just because it's really easy to get really clean blends and make everything smooth with a curve mag. I'll show you that right here. You can see that the curve on the outside is why it's named a curve mag. It's really easy to kind of make clean shades. You're not overworking the skin, and it's a lot less trauma on the skin if you know how to use it properly. And the last thing I'm going to be talking about is a round shader right here. So they do look like liners. They're just set up in a different way. They're not so tightly packed at the tip so that you could shade in areas, and they're really great for small areas that you can't really get into with a mag, or areas to where, if you went in with a liner, it would overwork the skin and cause problems with healing. So round liners are great to have. Okay, like we talked about earlier, there's a ton of different needle sizes, all that stuff out there, like 3 round liners, 5 round liners, 7 curved mags, 11 curved mags, up to really huge needle sizes. So what I'm going to do is go through what I use the most and what I'll really use for every tattoo I do. The way I tattoo in like traditional, neo-traditional stuff like that, I will use 3 different cartridge sizes on every tattoo that I do. Sometimes I will use more. Sometimes if it's a simple tattoo, I'll use less. But the roundabout number that I use will be 3. I will start out with my liners, so I will use an 11 round liner. That'll be for my thick lines I use. That would be 12. I usually use a 12 gauge for that because it is for lining and I like those thick lines. The next one I'll use is a 5 round liner. So this is going to be all of the small areas that I tattoo, all the little detail that'll create different line weights to make a really good tattoo that has depth. And the last I'll use is my curved mag. Depending on the tattoo, I'm going to be using an 11 or a 15. Sometimes on bigger tattoos, I'll even go up to a 25 and so on. It just kind of depends on the tattoo I'm using, but I will usually stick to one mag that I could pretty much do all the shading with that one. Depending on the style you're doing, you might need more. You might need some small ones, medium ones, and large ones for your actual tattoo. But this is what I use. This is the setup that I use on 95% of my tattoos. Awesome, and now that we went through all the carts in detail, I wanted to touch base on not all the cartridges out there are the same. Different companies do things differently, and you could really get some cartridges that are not very well made. Also, you want to make sure that your cartridges are sterile. So if you look at the cartridge, below all of the numbers that I just told you about, you will see a date. Underneath that will be the date that they go out of date. So they are now old, and if you are dealing with the health department, these will not be sterile anymore, and you could get written up for this kind of stuff. So you have to pay attention very well when it comes to these things because you don't want to be tattooing with unsterile equipment. So the number underneath, sometimes it'll have the number, the sterilization date to when it was actually sterilized, and then a number underneath it to where its expiration date. And then down below everything, you will see a blue dot. That is the sterilization dot, and that's how you know it is completely sterilized. That is the most important thing when it comes to the cartridges, just because you could really mess someone up if it's not sterilized correctly. On top of that, I want to talk about how they're actually made. Some of them have seals on the inside that you could use them with pen machines. Some of them don't, so that's one thing. If you are using a pen machine, you really need to kind of be aware of what you're getting, because you don't want that ink, plasma, all that stuff getting up in your machine, because first of all, that's gross, and second of all, it can destroy your machine. So that's one thing you definitely need to kind of pay attention whenever you are buying cartridges. I don't recommend getting cartridges on Amazon. I've tried a couple out in my career, and I've seen that some of them, just the way the needle is put in it, it bounces around a lot. It's not tight in there, so it'll make really shaky lines, stuff like that. A couple of them I've actually seen to where the needle actually flew out. Luckily, I wasn't tattooing on a client. I was just trying out these cartridges and see how they actually work, because they are cheaper on Amazon. And I believe that I'm going to be making some review videos on ones I find off Amazon, so that I could show you the difference between a good cartridge and a cheaper cartridge, and show you, even the cheap ones, what ones can work efficiently and what ones are just not worth your time. Awesome. So if you are interested in content like this, the best thing you could do is leave a like down below and follow us for more content just like these review videos I'm going to be doing in the future. Have a good day.